My husband of 6 years filed for divorce and laughed in the face, until the judge revealed my net worth. I'm Rachel Bennett, 29 years old, sitting in a Nashville courtroom watching my husband of 6 years, Ethan Parker, laugh as he signs our divorce papers. The same man who once promised forever now looks at me like a stranger, smug, relaxed, completely certain that he's walking away the winner. But little does he know, while he was busy cheating with his coworker, I was building an empire right under his nose. The judge is about to read my financial statement, and I can't wait to see that grin fall off his face. Before I tell you how everything turned around, let me know where you're watching from, and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had to stand up for yourself when no one believed you could. I grew up in a small Tennessee town where people knew your business before you did. My parents didn't have much, but they taught me two priceless things. Work hard, and save harder. Those lessons became my armor. When I moved to Nashville to study accounting at Vanderbilt University, I thought my life was finally beginning. That's where I met Ethan Parker, a third-year law student with movie star confidence and a last name that opened doors. I'll never forget his first words to me as I sat buried in my finance textbook at a campus cafe. "You've got potential," he said. "You just need the right guidance." I smiled then, thinking it was charming. Now I know, it was the moment he decided to shape me. Ethan was the kind of man who knew how to dazzle. He took me to rooftop restaurants, weekend getaways in Gatlinburg, designer boutiques where I never even checked the price tags. He made me feel like I was stepping into the life I'd always dreamed of. But every gift came with an unspoken lesson: his way was better. He commented on my clothes, my friends, even the way I laughed. He introduced me to his rich friends and made me feel like I should be grateful to stand beside him. When he proposed during a weekend getaway, with champagne, candles, and a ring so big I could see my reflection in it, I said yes without hesitation. It felt like a fairy tale. But what I didn't realize then was that every fairy tale has a villain, and mine was smiling beside me in a tailored suit. We married in Savannah, Georgia, my choice. His mother, Linda Parker, barely concealed her disapproval. "At least it's a respectable location," she said with a smile so tight it could cut glass. I laughed it off, pretending not to hear the subtext: "You're not one of us." After our honeymoon, we moved into his modern glass and steel house in Belmead, one of Nashville's wealthiest neighborhoods. Everything looked perfect, until you tried to breathe inside it. The house, like Ethan, was beautiful but cold. I tried to add warmth, plants, photos, color, but he said it looked cluttered. He preferred minimalism, the kind that showed money, not love. The first cracks appeared fast. Ethan questioned my every decision. Why buy groceries at Kroger when Whole Foods delivered? Why wear department store heels when I could look the part in Louboutins, paid for by him, of course? He belittled my accounting job, calling it your little side hustle. "Why work for pennies when I can take care of everything?" he said one night over dinner. Because my work was more than a paycheck, it was my identity. But he never understood that. Soon, I became a stranger in my own life. His friends' wives smiled politely but never included me. At a dinner party, I overheard one whisper, "She's Ethan's project from the middle class." When I told Ethan how that made me feel, he said, "You just need to fit in better. Maybe take up tennis. Or dress more sophisticated." I realized then, I wasn't his partner. I was his reflection piece, molded to match the image he wanted to project. The loneliness crept in quietly. Expensive jewelry didn't fill the silence at dinner tables for one. Lavish vacations didn't erase the hollow feeling of being treated like a possession. By our third year of marriage, things got worse. He monitored every purchase, every expense, as if I were a child with an allowance. When I was offered a promotion at work, he asked, "Is that tiny raise really worth less time at home?" He said we'd start a family soon, but only when he was ready. I was tired of living on his terms. That's when something inside me shifted, from hurt to strategy. I opened a secret bank account. I started setting aside small amounts from my paycheck, just enough to go unnoticed. Late at night, I'd stay up studying business courses online, watching videos on investments, learning how to make money work for me instead of just spending it. Each quiet night was a rebellion. Each deposit was a declaration of freedom. One evening, Ethan came home late again, smelling faintly of a woman's perfume he couldn't name. "Colleague hugged me goodbye," he said with a smirk. I nodded, but deep down, I knew the truth: he'd been hugging someone else for a long time. The next morning, I looked at myself in the mirror and whispered, "Enough." The girl from small-town Tennessee was gone. In her place stood a woman who had finally learned the power of silence, strategy, and self-belief. I wasn't going to confront him, not yet. First, I needed to build something so solid that when the time came to leave, I'd never have to look back. So while Ethan thought I was playing the role of the dutiful wife, I was quietly preparing to become the woman he never believed I could be. When people think of wealth, they picture freedom, big houses, shiny cars, the good life. But I learned something different. Wealth, in the wrong hands, can be a cage, and mine had gold bars. By our second year of marriage, Ethan had perfected the art of control disguised as care. He monitored my spending, questioned every purchase, and lectured me about financial discipline as if I were one of his law interns. "Did you really need another accounting book?" he'd ask, waving my Amazon receipt. "That's money that could have been invested." Meanwhile, he dropped thousands on golf clubs and new watches without blinking. I was trapped in a beautiful prison, one that looked perfect from the outside but felt suffocating within. I started noticing how small my world had become. My visits home to Tennessee grew rare because Ethan always had an excuse: "I've got a work dinner," or "I don't fit in with that crowd." He said it with that polite arrogance rich people wear like a tailored suit. It wasn't just about distance, it was about isolation. The girl who once laughed with her friends over cheap wine now sat in silence at country club dinners, listening to conversations about yachts and charity luncheons. His mother, Linda Parker, loved those events. She'd smile at me like a queen addressing her handmaid. "Rachel, darling," she said once, "you really must consider joining the junior league. It'll help you refine your circle." Translation: you don't belong here. At another dinner, one of Ethan's colleagues' wives whispered, "She's Ethan's middle-class project." They laughed, glasses clinking. Ethan didn't defend me. He just said later, "You should take it as motivation to improve yourself." That night, I cried quietly in the shower so he wouldn't hear. And when I came out, he handed me a diamond bracelet as an apology. I realized then, his love wasn't affection. It was transactional. My career, the one thing that gave me pride, became another battlefield. When I earned a promotion to senior accountant, Ethan asked, "Is that tiny raise worth the extra hours?" I thought we were planning a family. Funny. He'd said the same thing the year before, and the year before that. Every time I mentioned children, he dodged, saying, "We're not there yet financially." Financially? Ethan's family had generational wealth, trust funds, estates. What he really meant was I wasn't there yet. Not successful enough, not refined enough, not enough, period. That's when something inside me hardened. I stopped trying to please him. Instead, I started preparing to outgrow him. The plan started small, so small even he didn't notice. I opened a separate bank account under my maiden name. Every month, I rerouted a tiny portion of my paycheck, small enough that it wouldn't raise suspicion. At night, while he slept, I studied investment guides, business strategy, entrepreneurship. I devoured everything I could find online. When Ethan traveled for client meetings, I stayed up until 3 a.m. creating spreadsheets and learning how to build a business from the ground up. The woman he dismissed as ordinary was slowly becoming extraordinary, silently, strategically. My breakthrough came unexpectedly. One afternoon, at a coffee shop, I overheard a woman complaining to her business partner. "I can't afford those overpriced financial advisors," she sighed. "But I'm losing money somewhere." Her name was Caroline Brooks, owner of a local catering company. I introduced myself, told her I was an accountant, and offered to help her at a fraction of the cost, strictly off the record. Within weeks, I'd cleaned up her books, reduced her waste, and found ways to increase her profit by 40%. Caroline was thrilled. "Rachel, you're a genius," she said. "You've got a gift. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." That one project changed everything. Her referrals started pouring in, small business owners, freelancers, local shops, all people who needed help but couldn't afford big firms. I started charging modestly, but it was steady money, my money. To cover my tracks, I converted our unused guest room into a small office. I told Ethan I needed a study space for my professional development. He barely looked up from his laptop. "Just don't let it interfere with our social calendar," he said. Perfect. He didn't care enough to check what I was actually doing. Late nights became my secret empire hours. Each client made me bolder. Each successful project made me stronger. For the first time in years, I felt alive, truly, deeply alive. And then I met Victoria Hale. Caroline introduced me to her, a successful entrepreneur who'd sold her tech startup for millions. Victoria became my mentor, my compass. After reviewing my rates, she said bluntly, "You're undercharging, Rachel. Triple your prices. Wealthy clients respect what they pay for." I was terrified, but I took her advice. And she was right, my clientele upgraded overnight. Soon, I was consulting for established businesses, even a few Nashville investors. Victoria taught me how to make my money work for me. "Cash sitting still is dead," she said. "You want freedom? Make your money move." So I began investing, quietly, strategically, just small amounts at first. Then bigger. Before I knew it, my business had grown into something real. Something powerful. And Ethan still thought I was just his docile little wife who liked taking online classes. For years into our marriage, I was living two lives. By day, I played the role of Mrs. Parker, smiling at his colleagues, nodding through social events, pretending to be the perfect spouse. By night, I was the CEO of Rachel Bennett Financial Solutions, running a growing portfolio of clients and investments. I was still careful, never left emails open, never used our shared computer, and stored my financial records on a cloud drive Ethan knew nothing about. But every empire has cracks. And mine was about to face its first test. One Thursday night, Ethan came home late, again. He smelled faintly of expensive perfume, not mine. When I asked about it, he said, "Oh, just a client hug. Don't make it weird." I didn't argue. I just smiled. Because this time I wasn't the naive wife who cried. I was the strategist keeping score. The next day, I began noticing patterns, late meetings every Thursday, weekend conferences that didn't exist online, and dinner reservations under fake names at a downtown restaurant. I knew something was off. I just didn't know yet how deep the betrayal ran. But I was done being blindsided. If Ethan was hiding something, this time, I'd be ready. People say time heals all wounds. But in my case, time just made me quieter, and far more dangerous. After the affair, Ethan thought things were better. He mistook my silence for forgiveness. But it wasn't forgiveness. It was strategy. I'd already cried all my tears. Now, I was calculating, calm, collected, and 3 steps ahead. For the first time in years, I had something Ethan couldn't control, independence. My financial consulting business had started to bloom. The little side hustle I'd built in secret was now generating more income than I ever made working full-time for someone else. I had clients across multiple states, steady referrals, and investors willing to partner. And most importantly, every dollar was in my name alone. It was empowering, terrifying, and addictive. Each time I checked my growing account balance, it felt like breathing for the first time. Ethan didn't notice the shift, or maybe he chose not to. He was still buried in his firm's drama, still pretending everything was normal. But the mask was slipping. One night, he came home angry, pacing, muttering about company losses and people stabbing him in the back. He poured whiskey like it was medicine. When he finally spoke, he said, "If things get bad, we might have to sell the house." I stared at him. We? The house was in his name, his decision, his empire. But he needed me now, didn't he? The wife he'd belittled, the woman he'd betrayed. The irony was delicious. I didn't gloat, though. I just said softly, "You'll figure it out." Because I already had. The following weeks were a blur of planning. I met with my mentor, Victoria, who looked at me with that calculating grin she always had. "You've built something solid, Rachel," she said. "But if you want real freedom, you need leverage." Leverage. That word stuck in my mind like a spark ready to ignite. So I began to gather it. Every transaction Ethan made. Every confidential file from his firm that passed through our shared devices. Every inconsistency in his tax reports, small things most people wouldn't notice, but I did. I wasn't just preparing to leave him anymore. I was preparing to protect myself from whatever fallout his arrogance would cause. Then, one morning, I received a call from a familiar voice, Caroline, my very first client. "Rachel, you saved my business," she said. "I have a friend who wants to meet you." Big client. Serious money. That meeting changed everything. The client was Daniel Morris, a real estate investor who needed help restructuring his company's financial systems. He was smart, humble, and refreshingly kind. He respected my work, listened when I spoke, and didn't once question my worth. Working with him reminded me of who I used to be before Ethan, confident, passionate, alive. After one long meeting, Daniel said something that stuck with me. "You've got fire, Rachel. Don't let anyone dim it again." It was the kind of encouragement I hadn't heard in years. And in that moment, I realized Ethan had taken so much from me, but he hadn't taken me. Back at home, though, things were unraveling fast. Ethan became more paranoid, more controlling than ever. He'd question where I went, who I met, why I was suddenly busier. But the more he pushed, the calmer I became. He accused me once, "Are you seeing someone?" I smiled. "No, Ethan. I'm seeing myself again." He didn't like that answer. That night, he slammed the door on his way out. I didn't chase him. I didn't even flinch. I just poured myself a glass of wine, sat at my desk, and finalized 3 major contracts for new clients. The sound of my pen signing my own checks was louder than any argument we'd ever had. Then came the turning point. I got an email from one of my silent investors, Victoria's Connection, offering to expand my consulting firm nationwide. They wanted me to partner on a new financial advisory platform, with my company as the face of the brand. It was everything I had worked for: independence, power, recognition. But it also meant one thing: I needed to be free of Ethan completely. The next morning, I called my attorney, Allison Monroe, and said 6 words that felt like oxygen. "I'm ready. Let's file the divorce." Her voice on the other end was steady. "You've got everything in order?" "Yes," I said. "Every document. Every receipt. Every secret he thought I didn't know." Allison chuckled. "Then let's make this clean. You've already won." The day I handed her the envelope with all Ethan's records, I felt something shift inside me. It wasn't vengeance, it was liberation. That night, I went home, cooked dinner like it was any other day, and waited. When Ethan walked in, I looked at him one last time and said, "I hope you find the control you're looking for. Because you've lost the only thing that ever cared for you." He frowned, confused. "What's that supposed to mean?" I slid the divorce papers across the table. His face drained of color as he read my name at the top: Rachel Parker versus Ethan Parker. He looked up, eyes wide. "You can't be serious." "I'm more serious than I've ever been." He tried to argue, tried to threaten, even cried. But I didn't move. I'd already left him emotionally months ago. This was just paperwork. When I walked out of that house, the air felt different. Lighter. Realer. I wasn't walking away broken. I was walking away reborn. That night, I checked into a quiet downtown apartment overlooking the city lights. I ordered takeout, opened my laptop, and watched the numbers rise in my business account. Every client, every hour of lost sleep, every painful memory had led to this moment. Freedom. And peace. But even in peace, there are shadows. Because some men, especially men like Ethan, don't let go that easily. And soon, he'd prove just how far he was willing to go to pull me back down. Divorce isn't just a process. It's a battlefield dressed in paperwork. When I filed, I thought I was prepared for anything. But I underestimated Ethan's ego, the part of him that couldn't stand the idea of losing, especially to the woman he once controlled. The first shot came quietly. A frozen joint account. I was in the middle of a client meeting when my business card got declined. For a moment, I thought it was a glitch, until I checked my bank app. Both accounts, joint and savings, were locked pending investigation. Ethan had moved fast. But he'd forgotten one thing: I'd built an empire outside his reach. My consulting business and investment accounts were registered separately, in my name, my company, my control. He could freeze what we shared. He couldn't touch what I'd built in the shadows. Still, it was a message. He wasn't going down quietly. A week later, I walked into the courtroom. Ethan sat across from me in a sharp navy suit, the same smug grin plastered across his face, the one that used to intimidate me. Not anymore. His lawyer, a middle-aged man with too much confidence, started listing assets, arguing that I had no right to marital property because my income was modest. All the while, Ethan smirked. Then, my attorney, Allison Monroe, calmly handed the judge a folder. Inside, every document, every investment statement, every proof of my independent income. When the judge flipped through the numbers, his expression changed. "So, Mrs. Parker," he said slowly, "you built a financial consulting firm worth approximately $3 million? Ethan's head snapped toward me. His jaw tightened. I watched the color drain from his face like melting snow. "Yes, Your Honor," I said evenly. "All of it built during my marriage, without a single contribution from him." The courtroom fell silent. Even Allison allowed herself the smallest smile. Ethan's composure cracked after that. He glared at me, his voice rising. "You think you can embarrass me like this? You were nothing before me." The judge banged the gavel. "Mr. Parker, control yourself." But the damage was done, everyone had seen it. The polished attorney from a perfect family, unraveling in front of the woman he underestimated. By the time the hearing ended, the judge had ruled for an equitable split of assets, but based on the evidence, I walked away with more than just half. I walked away with vindication. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited, local business outlets hungry for gossip. I kept my sunglasses on, head high, walking straight past them. No statement. No tears. Behind me, Ethan shouted something I couldn't hear, or maybe I just didn't care to. That man's voice no longer had power over me. The next few weeks felt strange. The quiet after years of chaos. I moved into a high-rise downtown, overlooking the Nashville skyline, a view I used to dream about when I was younger. Every morning, I'd make coffee, open my laptop, and work on client portfolios with sunlight pouring through the windows. No tension. No control. No walking on eggshells. Just peace. But peace doesn't last forever. Ethan tried one more time to hurt me. One night, my company's website crashed, completely offline. My tech team traced it to a targeted DDoS attack. And when I checked my emails, there it was, an anonymous message. You might have won in court, but you'll never win in life. I made you. I can destroy you. He didn't sign it, but I didn't need to see a name. The bitterness dripped off every word. Instead of panicking, I forwarded the email to my cyber team, the same experts who helped secure my client data. Within days, they traced the IP to a computer registered to Ethan's firm. I didn't call him. I didn't scream. I just let my lawyer handle it. 2 weeks later, Ethan received a legal notice for harassment, property interference, and digital defamation. He'd finally crossed into criminal territory, and this time, no charm or privilege could save him. When I saw him again, months later, it was purely by accident. I was attending a finance gala, accepting an award for women in business excellence. He stood across the room, thinner, paler, his arrogance gone. For a moment, our eyes met. There was no hate, no satisfaction, just clarity. I didn't need revenge anymore. I'd already won by becoming someone he could never control again. I smiled politely, turned away, and raised my glass toward the city skyline. That night, I gave my acceptance speech. I once believed success was measured by who stood beside you, I said. But real success, real freedom, is realizing you were enough all along. The room erupted in applause. But all I felt was calm. Later that evening, back in my apartment, I stood by the window, watching the city lights shimmer below. The same city that had once made me feel small now reflected back everything I'd become, strong, capable, unbreakable. And as I poured myself a glass of wine, I realized something. Ethan had taught me the most important lesson of all. That sometimes, losing someone who never saw your worth is the best investment you'll ever make. What would you have done if you were in Rachel's shoes? Would you have stayed, forgiven, or fought back like she did? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear your reactions. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed this story, and hit the bell so you never miss a new chapter.
Thank you.